My name is Jacqueline. I am a corporate flight attendant and welcome to my YouTube channel. A little bit about me if you are new here. Like I said, I'm a corporate flight attendant. I've been doing it for about a year and a half now. And before I went to the corporate side of flight attending, I was a commercial flight attendant for 5 years. So my channel, Jacqueline Travels, is dedicated to all things being a flight attendant. Sometimes there's some lifestyle stuff mixed in. If you're returning and you already know this, thank you for coming back. I'm happy to see you again. So today on my channel, I'm going to be talking about what it's like to be a flight attendant who commutes. If you don't know what that means, sometimes a flight attendant is based in one city and they live in a different city. So they take a flight to their base city so they can start their trips. For example, when I was a commercial flight attendant, I was based out of Chicago, but I did not live in Chicago. So before all of my flights, I would have to get on a plane, fly to Chicago, and then start my trips. All of my trips would also end in Chicago. So after my trips, after long days of flying, I would have to fly myself back home also. It's not the airline's responsibility to get a flight attendant to work or get them home from work. If you choose to commute, you are flying standby to do this. And let me tell you, it is very, very stressful. There was a lot of complaining that I did when I was a commuting flight attendant, but there are also benefits to commuting that make it worth it. So the reason that I started to commute to Chicago was because my seniority was much higher there than it was in the city that I lived in and was based in originally. So by flying to Chicago, I was just say top 10% of flight attendants. Now in the airline world, seniority is everything. When you are a senior flight attendant, you get the schedule that you want, or you get the good schedule, or you get the good trips, or you get holidays off, or weekends off, or whatever you want it to be. Basically, if you're a senior flight attendant, you have a higher chance of getting a schedule that you want. So I chose to commute because it was important for me to work on days that I was available to work and be home on days that I really wanted to be home. I didn't necessarily care about what trips I was working or what layover cities I was going to. I just wanted to get my flight hours in on days that I was willing to get them in. So it was great. I did not have to work very many days in and out of Chicago in order to have a good schedule. I think my second year of flying, I was home for Christmas and home for New Year's and all like the major holidays. That is super, super unheard of for a flight attendant. And even though commuting was great for having the schedule I wanted, I don't want you to think it was easy breezy, because there were a lot of times when my patience was truly tested, where I thought, F this job, I don't need this kind of stress or aggravation in my life. This is not worth it. So today I'm gonna tell you about what it is really actually like to commute. Okay, before we get into everything, I'm gonna give you an example day as a commuting flight attendant. Remember, you're not being paid to commute, you have to get to work. So this could start on your day off, or this can start hours before your check-in. This is all like volunteer time, all not paid time that you are putting in just to get to work. So I actually found one of my journals from when I was a commercial flight attendant, and I blogged about this. I can post a link down below for you if you would like, but this is an actual day in the life of a commuting flight attendant. All right, 3 o'clock in the morning, you wake up, you make your coffee, you get ready for your flight, double check that your bags are properly packed, and get dressed in your uniform. By 4:15 a.m., you are departing for the bus to the airport. At 4:45, you clear security, walk to a gate that's flying to Chicago, list yourself on standby, and hope you make it on the first flight out. 5:30 in the morning, boarding for that flight starts. 6 a.m., hey, you did it. You got yourself a seat. You've been up for 3 hours, and now you finally have a seat on an airplane, and you're flying your little butt to Chicago. 8 a.m., you land in Chicago. Your workday still hasn't started yet, but you're where you need to be, which is great because it could go the other way. By 8:30, you get to the crew room, you check your file, you check your emails, you socialize with the other stews that are there, and you're ready for a nap. But before your nap, you have your 9 a.m. snack. At 9:30, you open the quiet room door in the crew room and hope it's clean, hope you're alone, hope it's actually quiet so you can get some rest before your trip starts. So from 9:30 until 1 p.m., you take a nap in the crew room. And if you want to see what it's like, here is an actual picture of me sleeping in the crew room in Chicago. So your alarm wakes you up at 1:15, you check your social media, you return the text messages, and then between 1:15 to 1:30, say 1:30 is your check-in time, you finally check in for your flight. You've been up for hours at this point and different time zones and already have taken a flight and taken a nap and done all of that, but you still haven't started work and you're still not getting paid for any of this. All right, after checking in at 1:30, you prep yourself. You re-put your makeup on, you do a little swab of deodorant, brush your teeth, whatever you have to do to freshen up before you walk to your gate at 2 p.m. and boarding starts. So now the passengers are boarded, it's 3:15, flight 1 departs, you just started work at 3:15. 12 hours and 15 minutes after you got up and were busy preparing for the day, you finally start getting paid. So say your first flight is like 2 hours. All right, 5:15. Then you have a 1 hour sit, not really a sit because you deplane and then replane, and then you work your second flight. Say that's another 2 hours. Hopefully you don't have a 3-leg day, but potentially you deplane and load more passengers on and then go on again for a 3-leg day. So at this point, it's 10:30 at night, the plane finally lands and you wait for the hotel van to come pick you up so you can check into the hotel and get some sleep after your 20-hour day. Just to get paid for 3 flights, say they are each 2 hours long, 6 hours. So you invest 20 hours to get paid for 6. So you can see you invest a lot of time in commuting just to get a schedule that you want. Granted, that journal entry that I just read to you was not an ideal trip. That was probably just like day 1 of a 4-day trip that was worth a ton of hours. I didn't write down what the process was like to get back home. So potentially you can work a crazy day like that and then be stuck in the airport trying to get a standby flight and not get home. It's aggravating. I was always nervous about getting to work because obviously that's very important, but getting home was so much more important to me because when I was done, let me tell you, I was done. And so just kind of to backtrack a little bit into what I said 3.5 seconds ago, sometimes you can't get to work. And the company that I worked for, they did actually have a really good commuter clause. That was like one thing in our contract that was super, super solid that I loved, that everyone who commuted loved. So basically, our commuter clause at the company that I flew for at the time, which I'm sure it's changed by now, but you had to go to the airport, physically be there, not just list online for a flight, but physically be at the airport, walk up to a gate and list yourself for a flight and have a physical boarding pass with you. So if you tried to get on to 2 flights and you did not make it, then you would be released without pay from that trip. That's really nice, isn't it? But then you run into the problem, well, if I'm missing hours from this trip, then I'm not making money. And also, there are flight minimums that you have to work. I think every airline except for Southwest, there are minimum hours that you need to fly. So if you lose a 20-hour trip because you only try 2 flights and don't get on that plane, you need to come up with 20 more flight hours so you don't fall below your minimums. Also, so you take home a paycheck. So I think I only missed 1 trip while commuting, which is huge, but I always gave myself ridiculous amounts of time because I didn't want to be low on money. I didn't want to have to pick up trips from open time, which is whatever trips are left over at the end of the month after schedules have been awarded. Everything goes into an open time pot, and if flight attendants don't pick them up, then reserve flight attendants pick those up. So generally, they're not good trips. So like I said, I only missed 1 flight as a commuting flight attendant, which I did for years, which is a really impressive record. But the reason why is, like I said, I gave myself a ton of extra time. But when I first started commuting, I was buddy bidding with one of my friends, Rachel. I talk about her all the time in my vlogs, but we just made it like an event. We tried to make it fun. We thought if we have to be away from our other friends and from our family, let's do it right. So she and I would split the cost of a hotel in Chicago. Usually we would go the day before our trip started and just go shopping in Chicago, go eating. We'd lay by the pool in the summer. We used to have so much fun commuting together, and it seriously helped. And then we got better at bidding, and we would be able to generally fly into Chicago like the day our trip started. Sometimes we could track our plane and it would be going from where we lived to Chicago, and then that plane would be the plane that we would start our trip on. So when that worked out, it really worked out because you wasted only 2 hours of your day getting to work, and then you were already on the plane that you were supposed to be working on. Best thing ever. And then when we would get stuck in O'Hare because we couldn't get home, we had each other to rely on. So we would keep each other company, we'd make each other laugh. Generally, I was wound up really tight and pretty pissed off, and she would just try to talk me off the ledge. So I appreciate you for that one, Rachel. I also would like to point out that as good as my luck was getting to work and only missing one trip in the years that I commuted, I did not have that kind of luck getting home from work. I slept in O'Hare. I can't even tell you how many times I got stuck in that freaking airport. Here's me and Rachel laying on the floor in our uniforms looking super professional, probably at 2 o'clock in the morning because we tried to get home on every single flight and it never happened. And then sometimes we would try to get creative and we're like, hey, let's fly from Chicago to here, connect here, and then try to get home since we can't get on a direct flight home. Well, the problem with that was sometimes you get stuck in the middle city too. I don't know why it was so hard to get out of Chicago. It's not like I was flying out of a not busy airport, I don't know, somewhere like in the Midwest. But when I was in Chicago, Chicago was the hardest airport to get out of all of the time. And it sucks. And it is freezing. That airport is always freezing cold. So that brings me to my next point. If you are a commuting flight attendant, I have a few things that I think you should carry in your bag with you at all times. You're gonna want a blanket scarf. This way you can wrap it around your face and no one sees your face when you're laying on the floor of an airport in your airline uniform, or you can use it as a blanket. You're also gonna want earplugs because an airport is a public place and it is very loud and there are children and the night workers. It's not quiet, it's not peaceful, and you're in a bad mood after a day of working or getting into Chicago after a 4-day trip and not being able to get home. You want peace and quiet. Bring earplugs. Also, take a blanket off of the plane because you're gonna have to make yourself cozy. Always bring comfy clothes too. Sometimes I would wear leggings as the tights under my uniform and just take the skirt off. I'd have my leggings on, I'd put on an oversized sweater, and then I would be good to go. It wasn't a huge fuss changing in or out of my uniform. Also, that's very helpful if you are commuting and you wanna get out of your uniform because the flight attendants offer other flight attendants an adult beverage on the plane and you wanna take advantage of that, but you cannot drink in uniform. So if you have a quick connection, do layers, rip them off when you're running through the airport, have yourself a little beverage on your flight home and enjoy the flight. Also have a nice fluffy pair of socks. Like I said, Chicago O'Hare was always freezing cold and you don't really want to sleep in your boots, but you absolutely don't want to go barefoot. A nice thick fluffy sock helped make me as comfortable as I could be laying on the airplane floor. So when you were setting up your homeless camp in the airport, AKA you're a flight attendant who can't get out and you have to sleep in O'Hare, here's a few tips for you also. Don't lay next to the heating or cooling system because you're gonna get too hot or too cold. Also, if you're commuting in O'Hare and you get stuck, it doesn't matter. You're just gonna be freezing. Everywhere in that airport was freezing. Also, don't set up your camp too close to the TSA lines because eventually passengers are gonna be going in and out, or they're gonna be putting up the ropes to block off that certain TSA lane and it's just gonna be too loud for you to relax. Before you make yourself too comfortable, stay in that area that you think you wanna sleep in for 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes there are airport announcements that go off every 8.5 seconds, and that will drive you crazy. So make sure you're not hearing those automated announcements go off all the time when you think you found your place where you wanna sleep. So that's probably all of the advice that I have to commuting flight attendants who could potentially get stuck in an airport. Help other flight attendants out though, guys. Like if you can think of anything else to keep yourself comfortable in an airport, if you have to sleep there, post it down below so we can share it with everyone. So I reached out to Rachel and I told her I was gonna make a video about commuting and see if she had any input. And her direct quote was, "It's a nightmare," which it is a nightmare. She's actually still commuting to Chicago. I don't know how, good for her. Obviously, like in the years that I've been gone or stopped commuting, her seniority has grown a ton. She holds a very good flight attendant spot in Chicago. So obviously to work your dream schedule, like I said earlier, definitely worth it. But as far as flying standby, your seniority determines if you're gonna get on a standby seat or not as well. So I just want you guys to remember that if you are choosing to commute, you are choosing to fly standby. So for all the new flight attendants reaching out saying, I live here, but this airline is hiring over here, do you think I should do it? Do you think you should do it after this video? There's definitely pros and definitely cons. I don't regret the time that I spent commuting, even though, yes, I did waste a lot of my life on airplanes or waiting around in airports. I remember my worst day of commuting. I was actually with Rachel. I think it was like one of our first times flying to Chicago together. And we got to the airport so early. I blogged about this too. I should try to find it for you and post it down below. But we got to the airport so early. We tried, I wanna say 7 flights, just running back and forth. Like we got our 10,000 steps multiple times over running through airports. Yeah, we tried like 7 flights, didn't get on any. And at that point I was like, I'm getting out of my uniform. I don't even care if I could take the jump seat on the next flight, like I'm getting a cocktail. So we went and we had a few margaritas at the airport bar and we tried 3 more flights, didn't get on those 3. And the last flight of the day, we were finally able to get on. So we wasted the entire day, a lot of money at the airport bar, trying to get to work the next day. So financially, it's expensive to be a commuter because like I said, we didn't start the trip until the following day, so we had to pay for a hotel because you know my feelings on sleeping in Chicago O'Hare Airport, don't want to do it. But also, I'm so glad that she was there because I would have lost my mind. Like one of my first trips commuting and that's what I have to go through, I would have been like, no, I'll be on reserve for the rest of my life and just drive to work every day and waste more of my time doing that. We interrupt your vlog for this important announcement. So I already edited the vlog and as you can tell, I ran out, the headband came out. I'm looking a little disheveled because I've been running errands, but Rachel texted me and I feel like I kind of have to include this into the vlog. 1, because 11 flights sounds like a lot and I don't want you to think I'm making this up, but 2, so you can see how dramatic I really am in real life. So she texted me, okay, I'm all caught up on your vlogs, #faithful-friend. And I said, I literally just got done recording and talking about our adventures in commuting. We had so much fun in Chicago. And she said, we started commuting in May of 2015 and you almost quit the first day we tried, 11 flights. So my first day commuting was that horror story I was telling you about where it took us 11 flights to get to Chicago. I'm telling you guys, it's not all that easy, not all fun and games. Sometimes it's worth it if you have a friend like Rachel. Okay, so after some reflecting, I don't think this video is gonna convince anyone it's a good idea to start commuting as a flight attendant. I talked about all of my bad days, all of the money that you spend, all of the time that you spend, the headache, the stress of not knowing if you're gonna make it on a flight, the pain in the butt situation when you're just tired from working with people for so many days and you don't make it on a flight home. But I wanted to give you guys an honest look of what it is to be a commuting flight attendant. Because you're not always guaranteed a seat and the things that we see on social media are not always an accurate representation of what flight attendant life is. That being said, I am so grateful for the time that I did spend commuting because to get the schedule that I was awarded each month made my life that much better. I was able to work high-hour trips in fewer days, so that meant more time at home with my friends and family and my pets. Also, like I said, I was commuting my whole time commuting, I was buddy bidding with Rachel and we made it fun. So the bad days were made less bad because I had built-in entertainment. So if you are thinking about becoming a flight attendant, or you are a flight attendant thinking about starting to commute, put together a pro and con list, because there are definitely a ton of pros and the cons weigh very heavy on that list. That's what I did before I decided to start flying to Chicago for work. I realized I wasn't happy where I was based. My base was shrinking and I was getting closer and closer to going back on reserve. Reserve life is hard. We had 24-hour-a-day reserve shifts, so you were never able to fully relax. Like if you had a 6-day block, anytime in 24 hours on those 6 days, crew scheduling could call you. So I never went too far from home. I just never could really do anything in those 6 days. So I also kind of wasted my life sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring and have crew scheduling call me. So those are kind of the things yeah, you waste your time on a plane, you waste your time in the airport, but if you're on reserve, you're gonna waste your time at home unless you're a better person than I am and you can be a productive reserve flight attendant. I was not good at that. Hopefully I covered everything. Hopefully the tone of this wasn't too dark. Like I said, if there are other flight attendants watching this and you guys have tips, please definitely leave that down below. This is a community. We like to help each other and talk through situations. That's why I spend my time recording myself in my kitchen. So thank you guys very much for watching. Again, questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns, those go down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Please make sure that you subscribe to my channel and that you like this video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks again for watching.